Hey, what's up, Hot Garbage Squad? Foxy here with a new video. In today's video, I want to talk about my biggest mistake in regards to the dimensional hole. But if you're probably wondering, oh, what's your biggest mistake overall, Foxy? I'll show you my biggest mistake because I've kept my biggest mistake. And yes, it's a rune mistake. Look at this rune. It looks cool. It looks fine. And then you look at the enchant. It's last one has a roll here, but it says hero. Yes, 3 years ago when they released re-apps, or maybe 4, I don't even know how long ago they released re-apps. When they released re-apps, I bought some and I re-upped Violent Slot 6 HP because I had nothing, no legend, and I was desperate and I did purple runes. If you're that desperate, do not be like me. Only re-up legend runes, okay? Like, even if they have no innate, it's still better than your stupid purple rune like I did. So I still use this and keep this to this day because my biggest mistake. Don't be like me and don't be desperate. It is a marathon, not a race. You will get your runes eventually because you're either got a lucker dog or because you're pay to win or whatever it is. Anyways, let's talk about Karzan, not Karzan, Alunia, not Alunia, I mean dimensional, yes, let's talk about dimensional hole and of the runes. So my biggest mistake is farming both dungeons. I farmed Alunia first and I farmed Karzan first. And I'll talk about why that's my biggest mistake, or my biggest mistake in regards to dimensional hole at least, because we already know it's my biggest mistake, goddamn. Okay, but before we move into that, if for whatever reason you farm Lumel, you're either 1, you know what you're doing, or 2, you are a complete noob and you are wasting all your resources. And I'll explain why. You're farming will runes, or for here, the only good things that you can farm are will and vampire. Energy, guard, destroy, all 3 are complete trash, unusable. Okay, like unusable in late game, perfect for broken sets because efficiency, but in terms of late game when you're building 4 sets and 2 sets, energy, guard, destroy, complete garbage. Never using it. Okay, and don't even get me. Don't even say, oh, you can use destroy in Guild War. That's like don't even start me on that. Okay, and will. So you're always farming will is number 1, and then vampire. Vampire, you're only really using it on Miho, maybe Leica. Like Leica works well because that can be violent as well. Jaeger, vampire works as well. And like I can't really think of Garo for sure. That's 4 on the top of my head that really benefit from vampire. And then who benefits from will? Literally everyone, right? So unless you're fishing, that's why I said if you know what you're doing, I mean you're probably fishing for a very specific vampire upgrade or something like that for your monster. And that's why I mean if you farm Lumel, that's what you're probably doing, is like very specific upgrades and very like niche and target heavy. Okay, so let's move into Alunia. If you're farming Alunia, for most of the population, Alunia, it works well. You have will runes, number 1, Nemesis, Despair. The endure and the accuracy are kind of whatever, kind of trash like the other ones we mentioned in Lumel. But will, despair, nemesis, all great PvP runes. Okay, will, we already know, best 2 set ever. Nemesis, it's really good for very niche units as well, like your oracles, nemesis healers, Garo, Leica's, Mihos, things like that that really benefit from the attack bar gauge. So it's not like a dead, it's very viable. It's not dead. It's not like a dead like energy, right? Then despair. Despair, pretty obvious. We use that on like oracles, for example, pretty huge, especially with the artifact buff. Like Juno is pretty dang good on despair. Other just great despair units like Iris, for example, Ethna. So this like despair set isn't like complete trash. It's good, but obviously not as good as will. So for most of the population who are watching this video, you're not cleaving. And if you are cleaving, kudos to you because maybe I got you into it. Maybe you just loved it from the beginning. So for a lot of you guys who are watching, Alunia is the best dungeon to farm. And I'll give you a few reasons why, okay? Early game, mid game, you're still probably farming Necro B10, B11, B12 to start your initial will rune depth. And then while you're farming Necro, you're still getting those rage runes, those vampire runes to build up your whole account. But the main thing here is you're still getting those will runes, right? But you're also farming Alunia B5 to add onto your existing or non-existent stack of will runes with higher efficiency. With ancient runes and the re-apps that you can get from this dungeon, the value is insane from ancient runes and reaps. So all you really need here is to get a legend will rune and then you reap it. 135, 246, whatever it is, you can just reap it and it'll become like an unusable rune to a high efficient rune, right? And that's how you can create depth really quickly on a mid game and a early game account for PvP. Like, will runes are the easiest way to control enemy AI and consistency for Guild War, RTA, and Arena. Like, literally every part of the game that requires PvP. And I mean, even works in PC10 where you're in 3 Will Joltan, right? So the next part is mid-game or later mid-game players and late game players like myself. For the most part, you've probably been playing this game for a few years now, or you farmed Necro extensively, and you already have your existing will set, right? And this dungeon allows you to never farm Necro ever again and just farm this for your will runes, because will is a 2 set and violent is 4 set, right? So the math, the math is pretty simple there. So you can farm this dungeon just for will runes and use it across every part of the game and never to farm Necro. So it eliminates 1 dungeon from the game for you. So like for me, this dungeon, I used to farm this a lot, and then I went all in on cleaving. For me, I don't need will runes, right? Like, I really do not need will runes on my, I can use will runes on my Lucian, but I choose not to. So like, I'm going a little bit tangent here, but for wills, for cleavers, you can go all will or no will. I go no will because at a high level, I play against Gianna users all the time, and no will just strictly counters them, right? But if you're like a low level cleaver, will is good. This dungeon will be good. But as a cleaver, is Karzan better? 100%, because you're getting Rage and Blade. Rage Blade is one of the best, if not, like, mathematically, if perfect efficiency, Rage Blade is better than Fatal Blade, like by very little, but every bit counts in high level, right? So like, that is the best one at a high level. And for me, I realized a little bit too late that I wanted to go all in to farm Karzan, and I farmed Alunia extensively, and I'll show you after this run like how extensively I farmed this and why I do regret it. Okay, so Karzan for beginner players, it's not bad at all. It's not bad because Rage Blade definitely helps you propel yourself from the early game phases to the mid game phase, because DPS runes matter a lot when you're trying to do speed runs. If you don't have the extra stats from the Rage set or the extra crit rate set from the Blade set, you're missing a lot of stats that otherwise maybe can't, like, make your monster 85 crit rate, for example, or 100 crit rate to always amp and clear arena, So in that regard, it's not terrible. But if you farm Karzan early and then move to Alunia, you're gonna face the problem that I face. Okay, I will show you right now since my dungeon is finished. The problem here is grind space. Okay, I don't know when Com2us actually increased the grind space from, I think, 700 to 1,000. But even at 1,000, some people will still face this issue and they collect every grind and gem. And then when you have grinds and gems from both Karzan and Alunia, it really clogs up your inventory, because it's very rare that you get a good, efficient ancient rune that's not the monthly one to use your grinds. I'll give you an example here. This one is legend, right? Fantastic. I managed to toss in my grinds and gems, but things like this, flat attack, blue grinds, you have to keep it because these grinds and gems are so rare. They don't come often. And the gems, yeah, I even keep flat HP because, like I said, you never know when that rune will come. So I'll even show you my despair ones, because I definitely do have a lot of despair. And despair, I mean, you don't re-up despair ones, because if you do, you probably know what you're doing, or if you're a complete noob, like I said, like, same thing, right? So like for this, I would never use ancient re-apps and then make it usable to use on my grinds and gems, because it's more valuable to do it on will, right? So I have to keep all of these grinds and gems, because should I ever get a despair rune and it needs these grinds and gems to max roll, like this may roll 5 twice and I need to keep 2 of them, right? It's because you never know. So now my inventory is just clogged with all this stuff here. And even my runes, like I see these white outlines, those are the ancient ones, right? Like I have some here and there, but obviously not a ton. But I still need to keep all those grinds and gems. So I'm really clogged on inventory space, especially before whenever they changed this from 700 to 1,000. Like thank goodness they did. But before they made that change, I was really constricted. And I was selling every grind and gem from like regular R5 to create space for my dimensional hold gems because they were just that much more valuable. Okay, so now that you saw my Alunia grinds and gems, you're probably wondering, you know, how much gems do you have for your Karzan? Well, like look at this, I have 7 here, and I have a bunch that I'm hoarding here that like they're blue too, right? And then I have my blade ones. You probably want to know what I'm hoarding here. Still hoarding a ton, right? I got 8 of these, and I got a bunch of these runs right here. So if I were to redo it, and you might have the same problem, because based off some of the counts I fixed, you hoard grinds and gems and runes like till no tomorrow. You're like maxed out. You guys, some of you guys are just either lazy, or you just don't know what to keep, or you just don't know what you're doing. The combination of everything, and you're like either max runes or max grinds and gems. So my biggest mistake here is I farmed both when I should have focused on one. And to cap it off, I want to show you an example here. I don't farm Alunia anymore. But if I wanted this rune, that legend that I re-apped before I swapped dungeons, I need to farm a grind for here that needs to roll max 9. I gotta farm a grind here that max rolls a 5. And I need a gem here to either gem this out or gem this out to make this like a 15, for example. You never know, right? Depending on what you have and what you don't have. So will I farm Alunia to get the specific upgrade? Most likely not, because it's not going to provide me as much gains or opportunity costs when I go to Karzan and get the stuff I want for improvements. So now that I left Alunia, this rune may never get an upgrade or grind. But if I did, I have to go back, farm it, and do all that stuff all over again. So there you go. Hope you guys learned something, and make sure to farm one dungeon if possible. If not, I know you guys move around a little bit, but try to focus on one. If this helped you, make sure you leave a like, comment, subscribe, and see you in the next video.